Episode 1, Raising the Vibration podcast. Our first guest is someone who's very dear to my heart because he's my cousin. He exploded onto the dance music scene in 2018 when his hit Along Came Polly became a global sensation. He now currently sits with not one but 4 tracks in the top 10 of the techno charts. Ruben, aka Rebūke, how the hell are you?
How's it going, man? That's some intro I got there.
Yeah, I'm surprised I got it all out in one go.
I know, man. Well, I'm honored to be on here, man. It's great to be the first guest, and I think you're doing something really cool. So I'm looking forward to hearing all the other episodes come through as well.
Yeah. I feel like, me and you talk so often anyway, and there's like no stone unturned. But one of the things that sticks out from your story is the fact that like we both grew up in a town. It's an amazing town called Letterkenny in Donegal in Ireland, but it's weird the way both of our careers have ended up in dance music world, and especially in like what you could probably perceive as the underground element of the dance music world, given the fact that there's like little to no underground dance music anyway in our home environment. It didn't really, my career didn't really even get influenced until I went to Glasgow in Scotland when I was at university. But for someone like you, people think you've only been around the last couple of years because that's when, you had your first big record and you've just had hit after hit after that. But what people don't realize is that you've actually been making music for how long? Maybe 15 years now?
Yeah, definitely come up to close to that. I think 14, 15 years now. My story kind of starts quite similar to a lot of producers in the scene. They kind of, they got into it through the love of watching, certain DJs perform or, through that way. For me, anyway, my first sort of recollection with dance music was watching, actually Tiesto. I was watching Tiesto videos, and I think a lot of people have that same sort of a starting point. I think it was like 12, maybe 11 or 12. And I remember watching them do this gig in, I think it was, I can't remember the exact name of the venue, but it was somewhere in Holland. But like back then, Tiesto was the only household name. Nobody had really heard of any of the other DJs, especially where we're from, in Letterkenny. So he was the first guy, and I remember sitting thinking, I love what he's doing, and I couldn't get over what he was doing. I was like, how is he mixing these records, and how is he going from this track to that track, and how is it sounding so good? And that sort of like blew my mind for months, and eventually I started to like learn a bit more about it. And time went on, and I got my first little set of CD players and started doing my own little mixes here and there. And, one thing led to another, and yeah, we're here today. So it's been,
and Ruben, did you have your CD players? Did you do that before you started producing, or like, were you DJing before you were producing, or were you producing before you were DJing?
So I was DJing before I was producing, and the reason why I started to produce was basically because I wanted to make tracks that nobody else could play. So I thought, if I make my own tracks and nobody can play them apart from me and my sets, so it was like it was quite selfish back then, and I just did it because I was sick of other DJs playing the same tracks as me in their sets, and I wanted to be like the cutting edge DJ. And I thought, right, well, if I make my own songs and they can't play it, so I started doing that. Kind of started off doing bootlegs and a couple of like remixes, and eventually it turned into like a sort of, well, for me anyway, a full-time thing.
So Ruben, you mentioned there that you were really obsessed with how Tiesto was managing to mix these records, and was DJing your next step, or did you get into producing before that?
Yeah, DJing definitely came first. The reason I started to make music was because I was basically sick of other DJs playing the same tracks as me in my sets. So I thought if I made my own music, then they couldn't play it.
So, what age were you when you made your first track?
I think it was just either 12 or just gone 13, I think. I started to DJ. I got my first set of CD players when I was like 11. And then basically a year after that, I started getting into production more seriously. But the thing about back then, I guess, is without sounding like an old man, there was no real not like today where you've got millions of YouTube channels and everybody wants to be a DJ. But back then it wasn't the thing. I mean, the only DJs you heard of around here was party DJs that played at weddings and stuff. So, I mean, to like want to become this DJ that plays techno music when I'm 12, I think my mom and dad probably thought I was off my head, you know. So, but it turned out all right in the end. But it was just, it was definitely something a little bit different at the time, you know.
I think it's quite fascinating, Ruben, that you've ended up on this career path where you've had like, I'd like to have a chat to you about like what was it that drove your passion, because you know there's been no external influence for you to go down the career path that you've chosen from our hometown. It's been like there must have been something inside you, especially to keep doing it for as long as you kept doing it. And you know, tell us a bit about your journey, how you got, you know, from the age of like 11 to 25 and what you were doing in that time.
Yeah, I think I just really, you know, when you fall in love with something, you just want to keep doing it, and you try not to like, you know, I guess give in to like external influences. And you know, it was just something I was super passionate about, to the fact where I didn't even know why I was so passionate about it, because you know, none of my friends at school were into that sort of music back then, and as I said, DJing wasn't the hot thing back then. So I don't really know why, but I really loved it, and there was some sort of obsession that came over me with it. So I mean, that never changed, and still to this day I'm the exact same, and it's never that's never changed. But you know, it was a long road, and it was one of them ones where it definitely didn't just happen overnight. And as you were saying earlier on, it's, you know, I've been making music for the best part of 15 years and only really finding, you know, I guess worldwide success in the past 2 years. And I think it's sort of one of the, I mean, whenever I think about it, I think just sheer arrogance is probably the reason why I'm still doing what I'm doing, because, you know, I just wouldn't give up, you know, and it's like for every knockback I got, or for everything I thought was going to work out and didn't work out, I just kept picking myself up again and doing it again. And I actually don't know why I did, but I think part of that is maybe because I had nothing else going apart from that. You know, when I left school when I was 17, I set up this studio, and I know the saying is don't put all your eggs in one basket, but I literally did that. So I
sounds like you
to succeed.
It sounds like you had one egg in one basket.
Literally, that's it. And it wasn't even in the basket; it was flying all over the place. But you know, I had to. I mean, there was no other, like, it was either do this or I don't know what I'm going to do. So there was no other choice but to make it in the music industry. And I think that probably helped get to where I'm at in a sense, because just the sheer, like, I wouldn't call it desperation, but just, you know, there was nothing else I could do apart from do good music. And I have no other real hobbies, and you know, I've got no other real skills. I'm not a good carpenter and stuff like that. I'm not handy with my hands, and it's like, what else am I going to do? So, you know, it was either do music or not do anything. So I think it was a bit of that. But with that in mind, I mean, that's a good motivator to get up and do your thing, because I think when you're your own boss, I mean, you know more than anybody. It's all about motivating yourself to get up and do something. And you know, a lot of times when you work for yourself, you haven't got a boss telling you have to come into work at 9 o'clock, and you haven't got somebody saying you need to do this. So I think the motivation for me was kind of like, you know, if this doesn't work out, then I'm pretty screwed, you know. So it was just, I wanted to keep on doing it, and also the drive and just the love for music is what kept me going for a long time, and still does today, you know.
Yeah, I think I mean, we've known each other for so long, but you know, we're obviously related, but we really connected when, you know, I found out that you were making dance music, and you found out that I was like an agent, and brought us a lot closer together. And we always used to, when I'd come back home, I'd always go to our local Chinese curry shop, the Tin Tai, and it became this running joke at home where, like, we'd always go and listen to your music after that. And every time I'd come back in, I'd say to my wee brother and sister, I'd be like, oh my God, this is the year. Ruben's definitely going to crack it this year. This is the year. And they just ended up, like, after about 5 years, they were just rolling their eyes going, Mike will be back from the Chinese curry shop in like half an hour with the same speech that he's been giving us for the last 4 years. But then I was incredibly proud. You know, obviously Along Came Polly, that record just went viral so quickly, and I was kind of like, I was so happy for you, because it was like, right, you know, you've stuck at it for so long, and you've grinded, and you're one of the very few people that I'm always able to get in Australia at like, who's in the UK at like midday when it's like 3 a.m. in the morning, because you're always still in the studio, like trying to work at tracks. Like your passion's very, very admirable, and I'm really glad it came to you. I think there was a few times that you could say, you know, you had like possibly even like false starts. I mean, I remember there was that one record that we were all convinced was going to be massive on Tool Room, and it just, yep. I don't know, for whatever reason, just, you know, it doesn't really matter now at this stage, but you know, there was a few times when we were like, all right, this is the moment we've been waiting for. And then tell us a story about how Along Came Polly ended up, you know, becoming such a big hit.
Yeah. So like for the listeners that don't know about the stuff I did before Along Came Polly, I had, you know, as you said, like a good 10 years of making music, and some of the tracks did better than others, and there was, as you said, some like false starts where we thought this is the one that's going to be really good, and then for some reason or just didn't connect. And that's something that I think people, especially young producers and, you know, aspiring artists, should take away from this, is that, you know, just because it's a good record doesn't mean it's going to be a successful record, which seems kind of cynical, but it's just the way of the industry. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. So you know, it took me putting out music, as I said, for like 12, 13 years before one connected. And then after that, you know, obviously Along Came Polly came about and changed everything. So, but the story of Along Came Polly is, you know, I've said it in a couple of other interviews. Basically, a friend of mine knew Jamie and sent them basically a pack of 10 of my tracks. And at the time I had this record, which is now called Along Came Polly. I don't even think it was called that back then. I think I named it Along Came Polly last minute. I don't know why I did. Actually, I do know why I did. I was watching TV in my sitting room, and I think I had called the track Untitled or something, like, because I'm really crap with names at the best of times. So the film Along Came Polly was on the TV, and I was like, you know what, let's just call it Along Came Polly, because whenever I named it first, I didn't think it was going to become a big track. If I knew it was going to be so big, I might have put more effort into it.
Oh my God.
You know, that's where it came from. But
Ruben, I have to say, I'm so glad, and for any of the guys listening, I'm so glad you didn't call that record Untitled.
I know,
because they're all mates of mine, but they would give me so much grief if they own a company called Untitled. If you had to call that record Untitled, I would never have lived it down.
Yeah, hashtag sponsorship. But anyway, then so Jamie started to play all the tracks. Well, not all the tracks. He started to play that track from the pack of tracks that I sent him, which was about 10 or 12, or maybe it sent him. And at the start, he didn't reply back straight away to say that he loved it. I just started to see these videos float around online. It was actually a mate of mine, you know, Gary. He actually was the first guy to find a track on Facebook. It was one of them sort of, you know, tune drop sort of websites where people post their, you know, tracks from festivals that weekend. And it was like, is that the track you sent me like 7 months ago? Jimmy Jones playing it. And I was like, yeah, it is. I was like, damn. And then like after that, then every day just kept getting madder and madder, and like to the point where, you know, people found out who it was pretty quickly. Started asking me for the track and when's it coming out. And even at the start, I didn't really hear from Jimmy straight away, and we didn't know what we were going to do with it. And eventually he said, yeah, let's put it out on your Hot Tracks label, or on his Hot Tracks label, which is like the sub-label of Hot Creations. But the track just kept blowing up more and more and more and going more viral. And eventually we wanted to give it like a full-on release. But the thing about it was the track started going viral like around August or September and didn't come out to December. So I had like a 3-month period where people were just pestering me every day looking for the track, and to the point where like some of them were getting kind of like violent with it. They were kind of like, why are you not putting out this track? What is going on, man? I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to do stuff, and I know where you live. And I was like, oh my God, you know. And it was just super weird, man. It was one of the moments where I don't want to go back there again. but you know, it was really cool. And I think the track sort of had its success because of all the things that built around it, like waiting so long for it to come out and the sort of momentum that it built. And none of that was PR, by the way. I've had a couple of times people saying, yeah, that was a really good stunt you did, like by not putting the track out for 4 months when everybody wanted it. And I was like, yeah, I had that all in my head. You know, but it was actually none of that. It was just the way it worked out. But it was a really cool part of my life, and it was like, damn, you know, it was really cool, you know. So I enjoyed that moment. But yeah, that was
Fan.
where that came from, and then ever since that, things have been crazy.
Yeah, and it definitely it's given you a much bigger platform now to. I'm sure when you're sending artists music, there's nobody that's gonna like get a download link for you and go, I'll give that a miss. It's probably easier
Yeah,
for you to get in people's ear and be taken a bit more seriously.
yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing I love about that track is that people say that there's this like unique sound about it. So I'm really glad that I could sort of break out with a record that sounds super unique. I would be really annoyed if a track broke out that was like super cheesy and like has a big Britney Spears vocal or something over it, you know. So like the track, the reason I like the track so much is because it can cross genres and DJs can flip it and do their thing with it. I mean, whenever it came out first, obviously Jamie was playing it, but all the kind of house guys and even the techno guys like Solomon and Adam Beyer and stuff were all playing it. So it was great that, and it was good to have a record that crosses over in a big way. And it was cool because it kind of laid the foundation for me to find, to like build my little signature sound, which is really what I was trying to do for the past 12 years. And I think that's the main thing that producers aspire for, is to find that little sound. It doesn't have to be something mind blowing, just something a little bit different to make it stand out. And I'm glad that happened, you know.
Yeah. Did you know that one particular record was going to be as big as what it was? Like out of that hard drive that had those 10 tracks, did Along Came Polly stick out for you as being like a shining light, or?
Not really. I always thought this was a weird track. I remember looking through an email with my manager Paolo, and I was like, "Hey, I have this track. I think it could be like a good B side to some like Berlin techno label, maybe." And I actually remember sending it to a couple of DJs and producers, and they're like, "Yeah, it sounds good, but can you send us something a bit more, a bit more?" I can't remember what the word was. A bit more original. I was like, all right. So that's how much everybody believed in it. But then sometimes it takes an external influence to like believe in the tracks more than you do, and that's what Jimmy Jones did, and that's why I've always been very thankful for what he did, because if he didn't start playing it and if he didn't believe in the track, then it probably wouldn't have done what it did, and I'd not be sitting here talking to you
Yeah.
about it.
Your
So
your life would probably be very different without that moment when
totally,
Jamie
man.
probably got hold of those tracks.
Totally, man. I'd still be running to the shop looking for a €3 sandwich meal. Actually, I still do that, but
Yeah, something you
that's not an
mentioned earlier,
excuse.
Ruben. You know, you said that like a lot of times people can have expectation on a track to be big, and it might just not work. I know from talking to a lot of the artists that I've worked with that I remember Oliver Dollar telling me, for example, I mean, two of his biggest records, he said, was stuff that he just like, it took him no time to put together. And then he said there's been other times that he's laboured and toiled for months and months trying to fine tune something and tweak it, thinking it's going to be this like success story, and the stuff that he spent months on has just fallen flat in its face, and then the stuff that he's just kind of almost thrown together in a couple of hours, a bit of a hobby, he's just ended up catching fire. Can you see any patterns in any of that kind of stuff? Have you got any experience of that kind of thing happening to you?
All the time, and that's what I love about the music industry, is that, and just not even the music industry, just making music. It's it's funny because you would think in most areas of life, time and effort equals a better product, but with music, it's not always that. I mean, you could literally work on something for 4 hours, and it turns out to be a more successful and a bigger track than something you've like slaved over for a month, which is so annoying. But it is what it is, and that whenever you like remember that the next time you're stuck tweaking a kick drum for 3 hours or whatever. And what I find also is the tracks that you can't get right, and the tracks that just never seem to sit right, maybe they're not the tracks to finish, because maybe they're not the strongest track, and maybe it's like your inside saying, all right, this isn't the killer, because you need to trust your gut too. You need to like really do that. And you've nobody else sitting there telling you it's good or bad, and it's up for it's up for discussion anyway, what's a good track or a bad track. So you kind of need to believe in yourself, but usually if something's not clicking, then you need to think and ask yourself, why is it not clicking, especially if you've been working on it for 2 weeks. But for me, I've kind of adopted this whole like approach when it comes to making music. I try and only spend a day max on the track, and then I'll not come back to it for another like 2 weeks. And if it's still good after 2 weeks, I'll finish it. If not, I'll just not look at it again. Because the way I see it, and what used to happen to me was I'd be doing stuff, maybe a remix or a track, and I would be working on it for 3 weeks, and I'd get that invested in it, then I'd want to make it work because I've just wasted 3 weeks working on it. So I'd be pushing it out and pushing it out, and I'd be almost forcing it to try and sound good when it's maybe not that strong. So the way I do it now is I'll work on it for like a day, maybe even half a day, with just the fundamentals and the basic ideas. And if it sounds good a week or two later, I'll finish it. If not, then I'm just never going to come back to it again, or leave it in the pile for something else down the line and use it as an idea in the future. So that's how I've adopted my system. And I feel like that's, I guess, how I can get stuff done a lot quicker, you know?
Great. And Ruben, you've obviously, when I think about, you know, being able to witness firsthand, because I've been back home so much as well, your journey, you're definitely what I would describe as you're a pretty solo operator. Like, you know, you're not in a studio with 10 other guys all producing around you. Pretty much you're out on your own most of the time out in the studio. What people around you influence you?
A lot of people, like, through the years, I think from, you know, when I was 11 or 12 right up till today, it's just been like a sort of journey of different people that influenced me throughout my career. I don't really know one person in particular that I could say influenced me my whole life. I mean, aside from my mum and dad, my mum and my dad, obviously, but in music, you know, from when I was 12 or 13, I used to be this guy called Fergie's biggest fan, who, you know, I know me and you know, but for people that don't know him, he used to be this really massive DJ in Ireland and had his own BBC Radio 1 show, and now he's the resident Hakkasan in Las Vegas. And, you know, that to me was the first sort of guy I was influenced by, because I was like, this is an Irish DJ, and he's like on the top of Beatport, and he's, the, you know, one of the biggest DJs in the world, playing all over the place. And that sort of gave me a bit of inspiration, and sort of like, you know, thought, well, if he can do it, then maybe I should give it a stab as well, because he's from Larne in Northern Ireland, and I'm from, you know, or in the same area and stuff. So I think he was a very, very important influence for me at the very early days, and still is today. But, you know, then as the years went on, it just changed. You know, every couple of years, it'd be like this other, you know, producer or DJ that I started like falling in love with. And, you know, it's just a ongoing cycle really of different people. And, you know, that's kind of what, you know, I think that's probably why my sound is like a little bit different to the rest of the stuff, because I listen to so many different types of music, and I don't really get stuck to one certain like sound.
Yeah.
I try and like just do weird stuff and see what happens, you know?
Yeah. And I think, Ruben, you've obviously, you know, you've had so many highs and lows. What do you think are some of the mistakes that you've made, and what do you think are some mistakes people that you see continually young producers or young DJs making, and how would they go about avoiding them now?
I think the main mistake I see producers and DJs doing, well, mainly producers, is trying to sound like somebody that is already there. So, I mean, when somebody sends me a track that sounds like me, I'm flattered, but it's not going to equate to the same level of success that I've been lucky to have. And it's the same as if you try to sound like, I don't know, whatever, Carl Cox or whatever, you know, you're not going to be Carl Cox, because the reason they are what they are is because they were so original and they did their own thing and they broke out and did their own little thing. So I think if I was a new producer, I would spend more time taking risks, especially in the early days, because you've literally nothing to lose. You know, it gets a little bit more difficult as the years go on, because you all of a sudden you've got a big team around you and you need to like figure out your records a bit better and then to be like more on point. But whenever you start off, you should be experimenting like crazy and just making the wackiest stuff, because that's what's going to lead you to success eventually. And that's a mistake I see a lot of people making, is they try and make what's current or what's the trend rather than trying to create the trend. So that's my main bit of advice really for guys that are, you know, starting to get into it.
Great stuff. That's awesome. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was, because you're pretty much so self-taught, where do you get your knowledge? Where do you learn from?
It's all online. From the minute I started to make music to today, it's always online. I'm a pretty good researcher in terms of like finding stuff online that I need to figure out. I'm super stupid. I mean, I'm not, you know, I have no degrees. I've not been to college before, and, you know, I'm not one of these guys that have got degrees in, you know, business or anything like that, but I just seem to figure it out a little bit. And I think it's, you know, again, arrogance, just because I want to know how to do something. I'm like, I just keep Googling it till I figure it out. And then I think for me, I know that's how I always learned best, because whenever I was back in school, you couldn't like get me to learn anything, man. It was just like the teachers in the end were just like, just stay quiet, man, and just stop talking, and just let everybody get on with it. And I was just no interest at all. And then now it's funny because 10 years later, I'm trying to learn all the stuff that they're trying to teach me. So, but it's all online, and I think we're so blessed to have to be in the era of internet where literally anything you want to learn, there's a video about it or there's some sort of article. And I think like the world's your oyster now. You can be at any part of the world, you can be in any situation and still learn the basics of anything just through online medium.
Totally. And there seems to be even like YouTube is like, I heard recently YouTube's actually the second biggest, I think, search engine in the world. So more people search like random stuff on YouTube even, I think, than Yahoo these days, which shows that like people are just trying to, I guess, there's so much content on YouTube now that it's just, you can get anything off it and you can learn anything.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man. It's just the way of the world, isn't it? Like even most courses and stuff are all online these days as well, and it's just all online learning, which is great, I think, because back 15 years ago that just wasn't a possibility.
Yeah. And tell us this: how have you enjoyed the last couple of years? I guess one of the things that's going to be a bit of a theme through these podcasts is talking to the artists about the lifestyle that goes along with touring. And I mean, I saw when. Well, I was about to say, I saw when you were in Australia, your touring schedule, but I put it together, so I'm probably to blame for that. But like, I think pretty much was it 13 gigs in 16 days? And there was days, there was triples, like there was 2 days, I think, on the touring schedule. You did 3 days, 3 gigs in one day. It was like afternoon, evening, nighttime. And how have you coped with a schedule and effectively been on like the hamster wheel of the touring world?
It has been pretty mad because I kind of went from playing nowhere to all of a sudden playing all over the world pretty quickly. I think most DJs, they get popular in one area first, like say, UK or Italy or Spain, and then after a year or two they break out to a different country. But for some reason or another with me, it was just like everywhere all at once. And within the first year of touring, I think I covered almost every continent in the world. And I think the only countries I haven't played yet has been like India and maybe some other random ones, but apart from that I've played everywhere, so it's pretty crazy. But I mean, I don't drink that much. I could probably count on my hands how many times I've been drunk this year, so I try to keep that on without being too crazy. So I do that, and then also just I try to eat a little bit better than others. I see some DJs, they're just shoving anything in their mouth when they're traveling, and that's not always good either, even though it's the easy option. But I think the partying and the eating healthy definitely gets you like through the tours a bit more. I mean, let's be honest, heavy touring isn't healthy for anybody. Traveling like that's not good, but you can at least do stuff to aid it a little bit. But for me, anyway, I know it sounds a bit corny, but it's the music that sort of keeps me doing them. And it's the amount of times I've not wanted to go to a gig, but then when I get there, it's like, all right, I'm all fired up and ready to go. I could play for 10 hours, and it's just that's what it does to me, and it really is the travel. And I know like people listening probably has heard a million DJs moan about it before, but it really is just the travel and just that's what plays with your mind a bit more than anything else. I mean, the DJing is I think it was John Digweed actually said something once. He was like, I don't get paid to DJ, I get paid for all the other stuff. I DJ for free if I didn't have to travel. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I think it's pretty true. It's the traveling from one continent to another within a day, and then going back again to play another place the day later. Like that's what that's why we get paid to do what we do, and that's why it's so difficult, and not everybody can do it, unfortunately.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned there, Ruben, was diet, and this is something that like you and I have had many interesting conversations with, and we're both open to trying new things. And one of the things that I know has been very successful for you in regard to I guess keeping your weight under control and keeping healthy in general is you spend periods every year where you do full like ketosis diet. For any of the listeners out there that don't really know or are not across what ketosis is, It's basically when you train your body to be fat adapted. So you're burning fat instead of carbohydrate as a fuel source. And it comes from eating a very, very high fat diet, very low carbohydrate. It's 75% fat and most of the rest is protein, and I think 5% carbohydrate. But it trains your body to actually burn ketones, which is basically like fat as a fuel source. I know you've just had a good stint on keto recently. How did it go?
Good. I'm just tapering off it now. Just this week actually. It's been going really good. I mean, the reason I do it is because it just seems to work really well for my body type and for my lifestyle when I'm off the road. I mean, it wouldn't work too good when I'm touring, but now that we're all off for a good while, I felt like it's a good time to do it. I had a look at myself in the mirror there back in March and I was like, damn, Ruben, you're getting kind of porky, man. So I kind of took that as a little indication to get back on it. But for some reason, when it comes to the ketosis, it's the one. I wouldn't even call it a diet, but it's the one way of life that really affects my body quite a lot from almost immediately. So I mean, like this latest one, I've dropped. I think it was like 12 kg or something like that, even though it wasn't, obviously I wanted to lose a bit of weight, but I feel like ketosis in general, it's just for some reason
12 kg, that's like what, 26 pounds?
Yeah, I think
2.2. That's huge.
Yeah, so and that was in like 2 months, 3 months, so it wasn't even that long. But it isn't the easiest diet in the world. Like it's probably almost catered for lockdown because with ketosis you can't eat with anybody else, you can't go out for a bite to eat. I mean, unless there's like specialist places that does it, because basically everything has got carbs in it. So you're not eating carbs. Basically you're like your carb intake's maybe 30 grams, 40 grams, and you have to be in that state for like 3 or 4 days before you're actually in a full-on ketosis or keto state. So I mean, it's not the easiest diet in the world, but I find that it works really well for me. And also I never feel hungry when I'm on it, which is kind of weird because I'm not eating as much, but I think it's all the carbs and probably the sugary stuff that I don't know. I'm not great when it comes to nutrition, but I mean, I think that's probably one of the reasons why I don't feel as hungry is because you've no opportunity to eat these like sweets or bars of food or donuts and all that kind of stuff. So you're eating like really fat heavy foods because you have to eat more fats to make up for the loss of carbs. So you're eating lots of like eggs and stuff like that, but it just fills you up really well and you never really seem to be hungry. And I find myself being like that as well, because sometimes when I'm in the studio when I'm not on keto and I'm like, comes 1 a.m. and I'm like, damn, I'm getting hungry, man. So I end up taking a trip over to the 24-hour shop and eating all sorts of junk, but with ketosis I never really find that I am, and like I could go 10 hours without eating and be like, damn, I need to actually eat some food here, and you'd almost need to like force it into you to eat it. But it's so that's why I like keto.
Do you count your calories? Do you count what you're eating when you're in keto?
I use this little app called MyFitnessPal.
Yeah.
I used it for like the first month just to sort of get like a baseline of what I'm taking in. But with me, like I don't really like, yourself from the other times you've had like chicken curries at the Tin Town that are I don't really eat different foods. Like if I like a food, I'll eat it for like a year. I'm not very adventurous, which promoters always love whenever I'm playing in different cities and they're like looking for me to eat wasabi and stuff, and I'm like, what is that? I just want a chicken burger or something. But so whenever I eat certain foods, I'll stick to it for a long period of time. So after like 2 weeks, I'll have my like food prep in my head basically set out for like the next 2 months, because I'll just eat the same thing. So I'll kind of get an idea of what calories they all are, and then after that I'll sort of I'll sort of know myself, all right, well, I'm about to go over it here, or I'm well under my calorie limit and stuff. So I tried like I was in ketosis for about 6 weeks last year because I'd heard a lot of people talking about it and I wanted to try it and I felt good on it. And the one thing that was really noticeable to me about it as well was the mental clarity. Apparently ketones are like a cleaner form of fuel for your brain, and I can genuinely say that I felt like almost like more mentally alert than what I was in a normal diet when I was eating carbohydrate. And I would have a pretty clean diet as well, but I think with when you're trying to do ketosis, I mean, you don't eat any sugar whatsoever because you can't have any carbs. And it's weird because
people manage to just flick a switch and go like, okay, I'm trying this ketosis, so therefore I won't eat any sugar. Whereas if they're eating like little bits of sugar, sugar can be so addictive. And yeah, the mental clarity was definitely something that really stuck out for me. And you know, there's a lot of data coming out. I don't know how much of it is fully legit at the minute, but the ketosis is really good for like apparently treating cancer, or helping people that are in remission, and it's also really good as well for people who have epilepsy. It can reduce the amount of seizures that people are having. So there's definitely health benefits to it. I think from my experience as well, there's downsides to it. I mean, you mentioned there, like, you know, you have to cook all your own food. Like you literally can't go out for food. So it's hugely socially restrictive. And I remember last year, you know, my mate Ollie was going to a mate's 30th birthday at a pizza restaurant, and Ollie walks in the door with his own cauliflower pizza base with him, going, "Hi mate," to the guy making the pizzas, "Can you put some pepperoni in that?" And the guy was like, "What is this guy? What's he doing, bringing his own base in here?" You know, so it's very restrictive, and also when you're eating that amount of fat, I think that there's kind of like there's clean keto and there's dirty keto, and a lot of people jump into ketosis, but they're eating just loads of like cheese and like stuff that's really, really high in cholesterol, and it can actually spike your cholesterol levels if you don't keep it in check. And you can also develop a lot of fat around your liver, which it kind of screws up how well you digest food and stuff, you know. So I think it's something that you've got to tread carefully with. And my experience on it was that I really enjoyed it and I felt really good while I was on it. I think it's something that I'll look at doing for certain periods of time in the future. Again, if you're overweight, you know, it's a good way to have that to get your body used to burning a lot of fat. But for me, it's not something that I found I could sustain in the long term.
Yeah, me too, because I think touring, like having a tour and then doing keto is virtually impossible.
Yeah.
In my eyes, anyway. I mean, people might say I'm wrong, but I know just from the way my lifestyle is when I'm on the road, is just doing keto would be like never. It's just not possible. But I think you're right. I mean, that's sort of what I do as well. I'll do keto for like 2 or 3 months, and you know, the one thing I also like about keto is for people struggling to lose weight or to like drop some weight, I think you'll lose a lot of weight very quick when you're on keto, but obviously it's a lot of that's water weight. But for people that keeps an eye on the scales, it's a little bit of like almost like a belief system for them, because you know they see the weight dropping so fast, and that's because you know your body holds so much water retention with carbs and stuff, and when you kind of get off eating so much carbs, automatically you lose quite a lot of water weight. So I think for people that are like needing motivation, stuff like keto is a great way to look at yourself and be like, geez, I'm just gone down 6 pounds in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And although it's just water weight, eventually that gives you a bit of motivation to keep losing weight, and it's still 6 pounds that you're not carrying around, so you're going to feel a bit better anyway. But as you said, there is side effects, and I think the biggest thing for me is to drink lots of water and try and keep a lid on like the dirty keto. I mean, I eat quite a lot of eggs and stuff as well, so I need to watch that too. But as I said, I don't do it all year round. I'll do it for like 2 months, 3 months, and then after that I just try and like maintain the weight loss and not go too further up. And once I get to a certain level of what weight I'm on, I like cut it back down again a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of like you're playing around with your body weight a bit.
Yeah. Do you exercise a lot when you're in ketosis?
A little bit. I mean, not so much. I mean, at some, I just take notions. I mean, I'll go to the gym for like 2 months nonstop, and then I might not go for like a month after that. It's just weird. It's probably not the way you should do it. I mean, I used to do a lot of running, and then I did a lot of weightlifting in the past and stuff, and now I kind of just do a bit of both. But I mean, I found when I was doing a lot of, say, like weightlifting, I'd ended up taking over my world for a while, where I found that I was working out more in the gym and Googling more stuff about, how to get big muscles.
Yeah.
And, sitting in the studio making music. So, I mean, my main focus is always music now. So 90% or 80% of my day is always either in the studio or trying to do stuff around music. So the gym sort of comes second, but I do try and like at least get in there once or twice a week when I can. But not happening recently for some reason.
Yeah. Were you in ketosis when you wrote Along Came Polly? Can you remember?
That is a good question. Actually, it could have been.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I could have been. So if I did, then yeah, I should probably stay in it. But I actually, yeah, I think no, I don't think it was actually. I'm just thinking back. It would have been January. The funny story about Along Came Polly is I wrote it like a year before it came out. I wrote it in like January 2018 and it didn't come out till like December.
Yeah.
So I don't think I did it. Actually, you know what? I could have been because I probably had so much crap over December at the Christmas holidays, and I probably wanted to lose a bit of weight in January. So I could have been. Yeah, actually, you could be right. Actually,
there we go. Shout out to the keto fans. Yeah. And Ruben, do you do anything else? Like, you've mentioned you do ketosis for your diet. Is there anything else? Any other life stuff you do? I mean, like I know from knowing you personally, you rarely drink or you don't party. Is there any other health or mental health stuff that you do to kind of keep yourself in check, given the lifestyle you've got?
I like to read a lot. I mean, not like read a book, but I like listening to audiobooks in the car. So I've always got some sort of like form of audiobook on. That can range from, learning some new stuff to like, I always like listening to guys that have built like say big companies and stuff. The latest one was the guy that helped build Netflix. I think that's really fascinating to see what they do, and there's a lot of like correlations between that and building a good brand in music and being a good artist, and that really interests me. And aside from that, it's just more it's music. I mean, that's one of the curses, but also the blessings of music being your main hobby, but also your job, is that you're kind of attached to it in more ways than one.
Yeah.
I mean, when I sit down to make music, that is me doing my hobby. So there's no kind of like, I have to drag myself to the studio to make this track. I actually do get such a buzz about making music, and I think a lot of producers and DJs are the same. So that is my main hobby, and I think, I should probably pick up badminton or something. I don't know, but I just sort of do music,
Yeah. When do you think? What's your prediction? When do you think touring will be back happening for you?
I think some stage next year. I think this year is a bit hopeful, but I think next year probably around summertime, which is still so far away. But I think realistically that's what we're looking at. But I don't know, man. I mean, the world's gone so mad recently that things can change within a week. I mean, even the past 4 weeks, the amount of stuff that's changed has been incredible. If you look at the news from a month ago to today, things have completely changed. So this time next month could be changed again. So you just don't know from week to week what's happening. So, I mean, it could be this time, this time next year. It could be this time 3 months from now. I just don't know. But I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later because I got bills to pay.
Well, what are you excited for coming out of all this? What positive stuff do you think has happened? And what's the benefits going to be coming out of this? The whole way the world's been shaken up over the last while.
I think we're going to take Mother Nature a bit more seriously, because not in our lifetime we've never come across something like this before, where it's just this thing happened and there's nobody really knows what happened. So I think it's something to do with Mother Nature, and I think we've messed with it, so it's messing with us back. So I hope that one thing to like come from that is to look after the world a bit more, without trying to sound like a hippie. But I think we mess with the world so much, and we chop down trees, and we do all this mad stuff that got us basically in the position that we're in now. So I hope that going forward there's a bit more care taken for stuff like that. And then on a personal level, I think people have probably got their priorities a bit better, because even in my like close friends group, everybody's changed their ways, and not a lot of them are saying that they regret it. A lot of people are like, I'm so glad I don't have to do this anymore, or this is far better. People driving 3 hours to go to work whenever they could probably do the same from home, stuff like that. I think will all help as well. So I think the world is not going to be the same place as it was back in December last year, but I think a lot of it's going to be for the better. So yeah. I don't know. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'll be honest. I've loved how simple life has been recently. I realize how much I love eating at home. I don't need to be out eating out all the time. I realize how much I don't need to even go in my car places. Because we've been in lockdown for so long now. as long as I can take my dog to the beach every evening, you know, come over to the office, you know, and exercise. I've got a very simple lifestyle, and it keeps me happy, and I know what kind of makes me tick, you know. And I think as well, just the hamster wheel of the industry that we're in, you know, like you get caught up just chasing and bigger gigs and more tours and all that stuff. But I'm going to be a bit more selective about. I'm definitely going to be more selective about who I work with, because I've realised, you know, our time's short on this earth, and you know. Basically, you don't want to be working with dickheads, you know, like, and it's probably a good chance to kind of like reset a few things. And, you know, I know I've kept great relationships with the people who I'm close to and who I want to work with. And, but just slower pace of life in general, you know, no need to be going at 100 mile an hour all the time.
Totally, man. No, it's super important. And I think we're going to, like, I guess, take care of ourselves a bit more, and as you said, be more selective over what we do, and sort of realize that a lot of the stuff that we were doing we don't need to do.
I think yeah, you go.
I think that's all I was going to say, really. I think I was just going to blabber on about something.
At the start of 2020, the one decision I made, like before any of this stuff happened, was that I was going to try and implement good habits into my life. So I've got these 3 or 4 things that I do every day. So like since I think the 2nd of January now, I haven't missed a day where I haven't meditated 20 minutes a day. I do like Lumosity brain games for like cognitive enhancement, and I do a gratitude journal I've done that every day for the next year, and I think that's been incredibly important in keeping me grounded. And also, you know, I think keeping your brain sharp as well is, like, when you're so busy and you're like not paying attention to how your brain works, it can actually be detrimental to how you then perform and function for the rest of the day. So I think just doing those little things, it's almost like just self-care on your brain. I'm definitely stuff that's gonna be with me for going forward.
Yeah, because I think you know, for me in a way, like I would love to, because, you know, in 6-7 years time, we're all going to be thinking back at this mad time when we're like, Jesus, this is a crazy year. And we're all going to be talking about, what did you do that year? Like, what did you do? And I would love to come out from that thinking, well, I did this, I learned that, I did this, and actually show something from it, because this is all like time that we've got, you know, on credit, basically, because we've got nothing else to do but sit around. And you can either go 2 ways. You can sit at the house, watch Netflix all day, or you can be productive, learn something that you've always wanted to learn but you never had the time, be it a language or, you know, some other thing, I don't know, whatever. But you've got 2 options, and the option that I opted for, and I know you're the same, was to like try and stay productive and keep yourself busy by doing stuff. And again, that goes back to what you're saying about just brain, you know, mental health. And it's the guys that are sitting watching Netflix all day, man, they're bored silly, and it's not good for their health, you know, because we're not used to that. I mean, we're all used to be out and about and doing a bit of work and meeting people and stuff, and that takes up a lot of our, you know, brain time, I guess, if you want to call it. But now we don't have it anymore. The brain still needs to be worked and needs to be stimulated, and sitting watching Netflix all day is just not going to do it. So I think that's, for me, and quite important. And, you know, I'll take interest in things that usually I wouldn't take interest in, just to sort of like keep myself busy, you know.
Yeah, great. A couple of things that I've done on the learning tips since the first lockdown that I feel have stood to me. I've spent, I'd say, an average an hour and a half, 2 hours a day learning how to speak Spanish, and I'm now starting to have conversations with people weekly. I mean, I spoke to Guy in Queenstown last week, and he said to me that I said to him, what do you think of my Spanish? And he said, I can just about understand what you're saying, but I can understand you easier than I can understand your English.
We could just about speak English there, mate.
And I've also as well, I did an amazing memory course. I think I've told you about it, and I've been learning how to juggle as well, because juggle's really good for the neuroplasticity in your brain. So there's so many things available that we've got so much time available. And the other big advantage we've got at the minute is, if you're trying to learn something now, you're actually not distracted by a million emails dropping in your inbox every day. So you've got the capacity to absorb information and process it a lot better than what we'll probably ever have again. So I'm really trying to come out of this You know, it's a bit of a cliche, but a better version of myself, you know, so fingers crossed. I think everybody at this stage is itching to get back to work, and we want to get events going and stuff, but you just got to let it unfold how it's going to unfold, and write it out. And, you know, we've got a few other projects in the go that, you know, we're like this podcast and obviously our run and stuff as well. So fingers crossed we'll come out of it a bit stronger.
But it's great. It's at the same time, it's great that you can kind of do stuff like this podcast now, because I bet if we weren't in the situation we're in, we probably wouldn't be having this podcast now. So it gives people an opportunity to explore things that they always wanted to do, but they never had time to do it. And it's the same for me in my aspect. I mean, I set up this little Facebook group with the fans called Rebūke Rave Club, and to be honest, it's been one of the most rewarding things I've done all year, because it's a great way for fans to like communicate with me directly and also with themselves. So I know if I was on the road doing whatever 100 gigs a year or whatever, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I think stuff like that makes it worthwhile. And being able to sit and chat to you on a podcast makes it worthwhile, because, you know, we wouldn't be able to do that if we're on the road all the time, or if we're like wrecking our heads about gigs and stuff. So I think there's positives in everything, and you have to like be on that side of staying positive, and like rather than looking at the bad of everything, try and look at the good that has come from. Because otherwise it doesn't do you any good, man, you know, and you just end up kind of hating the world and hating yourself. And it's like, you need to stay positive and like think of the best stuff that's coming from this. I know there's a lot of crap stuff. Like, I mean, we could go on about all the gigs that got cancelled and all the money that's been lost, but you don't think about it like that, because that's only going to get you down. You think about all the positives, and that's kind of where you need to be at, I think, anyway.
And I think people really appreciate whenever we come back to doing events, like that first weekend when we can run an event with no restrictions, it's going to be some party.
We're going to wreck the place, man.
Hey, Ruben, it's been absolutely brilliant so far. So I'm just going to wrap it up pretty shortly, but I do this little segment on the podcast. It's called Secrets from the Other Half. So I've actually contacted your other half, and she's let me. So apparently music isn't the only time you've hit the headlines. So I'll have it in good authority that when you were a bit younger, you went into McDonald's and Derry with your mum, and you got a Happy Meal, and you were so excited that you took the car out of it and ran the car over the wall of the building and set off the fire alarm, and ended up having to get the whole shopping centre evacuated.
Well, you know, the things you do for a Happy Meal, man.
Apparently it was actually on the national news that night about the shopping centre getting evacuated.
Because for people that don't know about everything that's gone on between like Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, we've had like this crazy 30 years of, you know, peace protests and stuff and the Troubles. But it was at the height of the Troubles in Derry, and it was like when basically like shopping centres were getting closed every week for bomb scares. And of course, me come over with like a wee Ferrari Hot Wheels car and just hit the bomb button, and or hit the emergency button, and you ended up in the news. That was actually pretty mad, man. It was probably one of the craziest. Good stuff.
You certainly were making your mark from a young age. Hey, I'll just finish off. One question I asked all my guests is, how is Rebūke in 2020 raising the vibration?
How am I raising the vibration? I don't know. By talking, do you think?
That's it, man. You know, that's a good start, spreading the message, spreading the positivity. You know, it's like...
I mean, that's all, again, it's just what we're talking about. It's all about staying positive. And, you know, I try to be a positive person. I mean, we're not always, you know, life would be pretty boring if we're always positive and happy and stuff. But, you know, you try and see the best in everything. And it's the same for me when it comes to life, and also when I listen to people's music or when I go to people's gigs, I'll always try and take the best parts out of people, or when I meet somebody, I'll try and look at them for the best attributes than their negative ones. And I think that approach in life is why I guess I try to keep raising the vibration.
Good on you, man. That's awesome. Ruben, just for all our listeners out there, where can people find you online? What's your handles?
All my socials are under Rebūke Music, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I'm not on TikTok, and I refuse to go on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to find it at this stage. That's a generation before me.
I just think I'm too old, man. I just think like I just don't need to see kids dancing to songs anymore. Like, I'm happy that they do it with my music, but I just don't want to watch it.
If you're too old, I'm fucked altogether.
Yeah, but it's just, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Hey, kid, thanks a million for coming on, man. It's been great to dive into some of that stuff. I'm sure a lot of people out there are really, kind of keen to know what you guys do in regard to eating habits and, the music questions you've been asked a million times, but it certainly gives people an insight into what your lives are really like and how you can stay positive in this time. So thanks a million. I'll give you a call in half an hour, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Nice one, man. Thank you as well, and great initiative you got going on here.
Cheers, Ruben. Peace out, bro.
Nice one. Bye, guys.